Good morning, friends. Welcome to another Word of Gord. It's daylight. I've slept in a little today. About 6 o'clock here in southern Ontario's damp, cool spring, in which it is very easy to sleep. I might add, which it probably won't be in another month, but right now it is. And we think of our Canadian neighbours in Alberta who are still suffering under forest fires. And we look around at our abundantly green growing forests in nature, where it's rained so much I don't think you could catch a spark anywhere. And certainly sympathies to those who are suffering the dislocations of forest fires. One wonders about the Devas and nature spirits there. That's not what I'm concentrating on this morning, but I am thinking of it. So, OBEJournal, number 16, 2019, number 16. And I'd like to move along with more meditations and thoughts on Devas. We had Kurt Leyland just yesterday, or was it the day before? And like to return to an earlier iteration, the feelings and thoughts and experiences of the people from Findhorn. Most likely Dorothy McLean, but maybe a group effort. This book certainly is. And this one goes back to the 70s and channeled a number of messages from Devas. And here's one from the 22nd of May, 1964. Soar up with us and feel the bewitching strength of life's radiations as we know them. These are the radiations which we pour through the plants and which the plants bring to you. As you concentrate in peace and stretch your being up to these radiations, as you become sensitive to them on our level, you become more sensitive to them in plants. Their essence is easier for you to touch on the inner planes, with us leading you to them. But let our contact lead you to the outer world, and let the outer lead you to the inner, until all is one. The Devas, 22nd June 71. Love is a firm reality which forms a bridge over which all can walk. Gooey sentiment is not love and does not exist within us. When we step towards you, we do it energetically. You can do the same. Though you cannot see, hear, touch, smell, or taste us, we are a tremendous force. We stand here in love, a whole dynamic world ready for an intelligent relationship with the humanity that will wield all God-given forces for the whole. Landscape Angel, October 1969. We would have you love the garden and all in it, putting your care and attention to it, but above all, we would have you feel it all part of the one. It is not enough to grow plants merely for beauty, appearance, or use. Grow them because all are expressions of the whole. You too are parts of the whole, part of that clod of earth, part of that tiny flower, part of the sunshine and the rain, and the light in another's eye, the warmth of another's smile. You are part of us, the angelic hosts who overlight and give life to the planet, who care for you all, though you know it not. Landscape Angel, 20 June 1963. We see life in terms of the inner force, while you see only the outer form and cannot see the continual process taking place. We should like you to try to think in our terms, because it will make things easier for both of us. You will be closer to reality and will be able to understand us better. These inner forces are as intricate as the outer form, having shape, color, texture, etc., but of a finer and richer substance. When you look at plants, know that what you see has an inner counterpart simply pulsating with the life you see and much more. As your mind becomes familiar with this concept and you think of the plants as glowing and moving with life, you will in fact add to that life. By thought, you add to their force, and at the same time you draw upon the source of all life, generating more and more power and more life. That is what we want. Landscape Angel, 30 July 64. Rain, having passed through many radiations as part of a natural process, is far better for plants than watering. Well, we know that. But when man does find it necessary to water, he can give out radiations which are as helpful to the plants as the natural ones that come with rain. When man acts as part of the one life, he is that, and he is a transformer for the many ranges of vibrations. The plants are grateful for the water, and especially for the love that come with it. And you can Reiki your plants too, you know that. You put your hand on them, near them, or touch them, and let the Reiki flow. They love it. The Devas, January 69-26. If mankind's cooperation with the Deva world is to grow, you should realize more of what we do. The more God's creatures know of one another, the greater the unity and peace. Landscape Angel, 12 July 63. There are many units in my care, places where the owners have a great love for their gardens and where guardians from the Devic realms exist. But unless man is conscious of the divine in him and acts from it, he is open to error and his work falls short of perfection. Until man is conscious of our existence and recognizes the part we play in the formation of the worlds on which he depends, there is no true cooperation. Even if he has no link with us through direct contact, the fact of affirming our existence forms a link and is part of the truth on which to build. In your recognition of and cooperation with us, we realize anew the increased play of forces this engenders. Landscape Angel, 28 July 64. In the tremendous growth in the garden, you have evidence in the form of how power is recognized and made manifest. We of the Deva world have been contacted, recognized by you, and thus given hands and feet, which we would otherwise not have. As power within you is not awakened until it is recognized and called forth, so you must call forth our powers. Angel of Sound. Each plant sounds a note which attracts its builders to it and calls substance to itself through the nature spirits. We Devas know the individual notes for all are in our charge, and we sound them like tuning forks to be picked up by each plant. When a seed is ready to germinate, moisture and warmth do not of themselves set its note vibrating. We do that. We set the seed on its way and hold out its note before it to follow. The note changes with growth and stages, as does man, whose voice changes as he advances into maturity. Thank you, the Findhorn Garden community. This is an old book from the early 70s. Even earlier than that is Geoffrey Hodson's Kingdom of the Gods. from, well, this one's 1951, but I think it was done much earlier than that. There's much in this book, and I'm only going to read a small section. A Deva of the Bee Kingdom. My own observations have led me to a belief in the existence of protective and directive angel guardians of bees. And as we know about the declining bee colonies and the various chemicals that are destroying them, and various societies are fighting them, not a minute too late, I might add, this does seem quite appropriate, does it not? Once, while watching some hives, I became aware of a very lofty angel established at the level of abstract thought, whose aura displayed the typical colors of the bee body sublimated to the higher mental level of intensity and delicacy of light and color. This intelligence appeared to be an agent of an archangel, presiding over the whole of bee life. That's the whole of bee life. That's quite a bit on this planet. Consciousness, form, and evolution upon this planet. My notes made at the time state that a hierarchy of angels serves under this archangel and is represented at the etheric level by the nature spirit builders of the physical form of bees. There was such an angel connected with the hives at which this study was made, and presumably there would be one with every active hive. These angels closely resemble other angels associated with the subhuman kingdoms of nature in temperament and appearance, but yellow, gold, and dark brown predominate in their auras. They seem to regard the evolution of the bee as of very great importance, and to take seriously, though joyously, their work of directing, guarding, and quickening the evolution of bee consciousness. They are in continuous contact with their superiors and, through them, with the planetary archangel or overlord of bees. The queen bee in a hive shows astrally as a golden center of glowing light and color within the luminous aura of the hive. She shines therein as a nucleus and is a center of life, superphysically as well as physically. Forces are continually flowing through her into the hive group soul. These consist of life forces and certain electromagnetic creative energies for which she is a center or focus in the hive. These forces flow outwards from the center in minute ripples, and this ceaseless movement produces a superphysical sound not unlike that of the buzzing of the bees. The shape of the aura of the hive and community is that of the old-fashioned straw hive, i.e. a pointed dome with a flat base. Each bee appears to be superphysical vision as a speck or point of light, the queen's aura being larger and brighter than that of the other bees. Yes, as we've experienced together in the spirit planes beyond the heaven levels, there is much points of light in oceans of light. Monads can appear that way too, and sometimes one wishes it would be a little more detailed because you get to a lot of visions and situations where you're doing the glowing points of light in a sea of light. The angel appears to work especially for those of his charges who are at the larva phase, and to exercise a very distinct and definite protecting and guiding function at that stage, almost as though bees on this planet were not yet quite capable, without such help, of passing through all the growth processes after hatching. The angel also influences the selection, special feeding, and development of the queen, and makes the necessary links between the permanent atoms, the bee oversoul and the selected queen. The consciousness of the bee is instinctive, and the many evidences of ordered community life among bees result from a high development of that instinct rather than intelligence. I was once asked to work with a mouse deva, in and around a house that had an infestation of mice. And that was my impression too, was that they have a high development of instinct, but not of particular intelligence. And they operate under, and even the Devas said to me in communication that he would try to give the individual mice instructions and directions, but they would be so busy with their instinctual life, they would hardly hear him. And he sort of said, well, I'll have a go, but I can't promise anything, words to that effect. Here again, the work of an angel is of considerable importance in awakening the instincts of the different groups in the community and in arousing the impulse towards certain courses of conduct. Broadly, one might say that the queen is the life center of the community and the angel is the directing intelligence. He unifies his mind with the group consciousness of the hive and is to some extent imprisoned therein, submitting to that limitation for the sake of the service it enables him to render. Outside the hive, however, he has a certain measure of freedom of consciousness, though at the emotional and mental levels he seems permanently attached to it, as if his complete withdrawal would mean an absence of control and consequent disorder in the community. Under this limitation, there is no sense of restriction. On the contrary, there is an absorbing interest and delight in the work, the joy of the craftsman and the artist. The angel is responsible for the development of both life and form, and is happy in the knowledge that he is helping to perfect these and is playing his part in the great evolutionary plan. Just as plants and trees are developing emotion, the bee is developing mind. The queen represents the nascent higher abstract mind, the workers the lower concrete mind, the drones the creative principle. The creative urge is experienced as instinct rather than desire. Feeling exists but is reduced to a minimum as if it had long ago been sublimated. The angel from whom I sought counsel indicated that attempts by man to cooperate with his kingdom were welcomed, and expressed the hope that they foreshadowed the approach of an era of human and angelic cooperation in bee culture, as well as other branches of husbandry. Bees will respond, he said, to attempts by man to unify his consciousness with theirs, just as plants respond, however faintly, to admiration and affection. But there is a distinct danger of overdevelopment in the culture of bees. Their organization is marvelously adaptable, but if they are overexploited and if the hives are made too complex and artificial, harm will be done. Man must recognize the evolving life in the bee and not regard that insect as mere mechanical honey-gatherer for the sole benefit of the human race. In other fields, other orders of angels and nature spirits perform analogous functions and use the earth as a field of evolution and activity, references being made to some of them in later parts of this work. Numerous other orders of angels are using this earth as a field of evolution and activity. Information concerning them is contained in Hindu and Buddhist scriptures, the literature of Kabbalism, and in that great synthesis of occult science, The Secret Doctrine by H.P. Blavatsky. Obviously a theosophist. Here's another interesting little snippet under the title, The Color Language of the Angels. Angelic forms are built of light, or rather of tenuous material which is self-luminous. For every atom of their bodies and also of the worlds in which they dwell is a glowing particle of light. The form they use closely resembles our own and is, in fact, built upon the same model as is the human physical body. That's an interesting reference to the human appearances that we had and that Kurt Leland had. As stated earlier and shown in the illustrations, fairies and angels thus generally appear as very beautiful, ethereal, human-like beings. Their faces, however, wear an expression which is distinctly non-human, for they are stamped with an impression of dynamic energy, of vividness of consciousness and life, with a certain supernal beauty and otherworldliness, which is rarely seen among men. The appearance of the angels is also remarkable to human sight on account of the continual play of energy within and through their bodies and their glowing aura. They may be thought of both as agents and even engineers of the fundamental forces of nature. The powers which they control and manipulate are continually passing through and radiating from them, producing as they flow an effect which somewhat resembles the aurora borealis, northern lights. As their bodies are formed of light, every variation in the flow of force produces a change of color. A change of consciousness is instantly visible as an alteration in the shape and color of their auras. An outpouring of love, for example, suffuses them with a crimson glow, while in addition a vivid stream of roseate love force flows out toward the object of their affection. Activity of thought appears as an uprush of yellow light and power from the head, so that they frequently appear as if crowned with a shining halo of light, a crown of gold, which is their thought, set with many jewels, each jewel an idea. An angel who on occasion has mentally instructed me concerning his, it says his, and there's a note here, as before stated, the masculine pronoun is used for convenience only, angels being asexual. His kingdom also provides examples of angelic communication and of the operation of the law, which superphysical matter assumes appropriate form and color in response to the impact of thoughts. An account of 2 of these lessons is given here from notes taken at the time. I must, however, explain that Arupa Devas are in the highest degree impersonal, impassive, and detached. Their consciousness is universal and exclusively concentrated upon their tasks. They are not normally accustomed to experience any personal attachments whatever. Rupa Devas, associated with the evolving life in nature, do not, as far as I'm aware, usually experience or express the emotion of personal love. Their minds are universal and their hearts belong to the one life of which they are impersonal embodiments. Certain Rupa Devas, however, may be regarded as incarnations of the qualities of divine love, compassion, tenderness for all that lives, and these do feel, in however sublimated and impersonal manner, a sense of unity with each other and with man. As the following descriptions indicate, they love power and can become temporarily directed to persons, but without the faintest tinge of I-ness and possessiveness. Certain nature spirits on the threshold of individualization into angelhood, particularly those associated with the element of air, fairies, and sylphs, can feel attracted towards men who possess the power consciously to enter their kingdom and communicate with them. Nature spirits on the threshold of individualization into angelhood. They do graduate in responsibilities and powers. They do evolve, just as we do. Their submission to this attraction is rarely complete, and even while seeking to allure the object of their affections, they do not usually conceive a permanent relationship. Such close mental-emotional associations with human beings can be helpful to them, even though very harmful to their human partner. For them, the attainment of individualization might be hastened by a blending of their mental-emotional nature with that of an individualized human being. But for man, the adventure would likely lead to insanity. Medieval legends in which sylphs and other nature spirits, for their own advantage, seek, even physically attain, unions with men are probably more allegorical than historical. Physical union would demand materialization on the part of the sylph, which is most unlikely, and if ever attained, very rare. It would seem to be more probable that a veiled reference is being made to the evolutionary value of such nature spirits, of close physical association and collaboration with members of the human family. An occult tradition does exist that, as an exception to that impersonality which is the characteristic of highly evolved devas, intimate egoic attachments with human beings have been formed and have even become so strong as to cause the deva to seek and obtain admission to the human kingdom in order to be near the beloved human being. Birth in a human body then follows, and when a physical meeting with the beloved occurs, a very deep and fiery love is awakened in both of them. So strong is this emotion that if conventional barriers exist, they are ignored. Tragedy is not infrequently the result. Whilst resting in the garden of my cottage in Gloucestershire, and I did once go to the neighbourhood, not the actual cottage, was told where it was, and experienced the valley in which he first envisioned the deva. I observed the angel teacher travelling at a great height in the air and sent out a greeting and mental call for further knowledge concerning angelic hosts. At once he paused in his flight and descended steeply toward the garden. As he came down, he sent an answering stream of love which extended from the region of his heart and appeared as rays of glowing rose and crimson light. This outflowing love resembled a flower, for the sides of the funnel form in which it produced were divided into petals, and in the center was a brilliant golden rose, the whole opening gradually as the angel drew near. This flower pulsed rhythmically, and the lines of force of which it was composed quivered as he poured forth his affection and life force. He resembled a glorious Greek god upon whose breast was an open rose. The petal-like radiations reached out and over me, the maximum diameter of the flower being about 8 feet. A continuous play of brilliantly colored force in bands of varying size and degrees of luminosity also shone above the angel's head. Another angel, chiefly blue in color, soon appeared, and the two engaged in a conversation. As they spoke, their auras reached out toward each other, touched and drew back, like wings of celestial butterflies. They were about 25 yards apart and a little above the fruit tree in the orchard. The fluidic nature of their auras was demonstrated by the ease with which they extended them to cover the intervening space. They spoke both with the hearts and the minds, for the colors and symbols appeared in the emotional and mental matter of their auras above their heads for the most part, but also flashing between them with a rapidity and brilliance quite beyond my capacity to observe fully and record accurately. The main theme of the first angel found its natural expression through that soft, pale green sometimes seen in a summer sunset, and this shade appearing continually both in bands of color above his head and in the symbol formed. It also tinged the larger portion of his aura, suggesting the qualities of sympathy and understanding. These beautiful forms, like vertical, elongated scallop shells, next appeared and hovered in the air above his head, quivering with life and light. In color they were rose, yellow, and dark blue, deepening to purple. Presently they expanded into the shape and appearance of large fans, met and became interwoven with one large fan-shaped radiation. Alternately widening and narrowing, the single stream of flowing force extended high into the air and then disappeared. From his brother angel, this called forth a perfect blaze of response, like a pyrotechnic display. His first answer turned the upper part of his aura into 3 bands of colors, all of the same shades as the shells. It then swept forward and embraced the first angel, holding him thus for some 2 or 3 seconds and then withdrawing. 3 greatly enlarged fan-shaped symbols next appeared above him in succession, each symbol disappearing into the upper air in a flash of color. A radiant smile illumined his face, and was evident that the remark of the first angel had touched some responsive chord in his nature. The first angel then explained to me the meaning of this interchange. The blue angel, who was the second to appear, contained within himself something of the fundamental forces and qualities of character underlying the second, fifth, and seventh rays. Now, the talk of the rays, that's deeply philosophical, and theosophical rather, and we haven't got time to go into that here. His life was an expression of the deepest love and the highest intellect, while in his work he displayed perfect precision of action. These qualities represented his ideal of perfection, and he was consciously linked with an archangel superior in whom they were fully developed. In all nature he perceived predominantly these 3 powers, traced the effects of their operation in members of the human race, and expressed them in all his own activities. In order to help human beings, for example, he would unify himself with their love nature, enhancing the human power of love by adding to it his own impersonal and universal affection. He would then help scientists by stimulating their mental powers, by increasing their capacity for profound abstraction, and would endeavor to illumine their minds with the solution of any problems which they were seeking to solve. He would assist artists, actors, dancers, and ceremonialists to attain greater perfection, grace, and beauty of portrayal, and more accurate expression of the idea by which their art was inspired. He would similarly aid his brother angels and the evolving life in the subhuman kingdoms of nature. In all his activities, these 3 characteristics would predominate, forming the background of his life and the source of his inspiration. The first angel, with deep and intuitive sympathy, discerned this fact and mentally expressed his brother angel's ideals with all the fullness and completeness of which he was capable, thereby producing the 3 shell-like forms in the colors typical of the 3 rays. The second angel responded by causing the 3 highly developed qualities of his nature to shine out successfully in greatly enlarged fan-shaped forms. This account, lengthy as it is still but a very incomplete description of the interchange of thought and feeling between the angels, which probably lasted no more than a minute. The use of the word ray fails adequately to express the concept in the angel's mind. He would probably call it an aspect of the divine life and consciousness, which is projected as a tongue of flame from the central fiery heart of things, or a stream of specially attuned vital energy permeating the universe. The angel further explained that, in addition to this color language, there is a direct interchange of ideas at mental levels. The colors and symbols are largely produced by that interchange, though they may also be used as illustrations and elucidations of the central idea. Much beauty here and much inspiration. The Dance of the Sylphs. The aerial heights above the district of Gloucestershire in which these teachings are received are peopled with various orders of nature spirits, and especially with sylphs of different degrees of development. The angel teacher referred in the preceding description, still remaining near the ground, turned his attention upwards, opened his arms toward the sky, and sent out a call which had the effect of bringing a large number of sylphs down into the garden where I was seated. As they descended, they grew together in groups, and their blended auras produced the effect of living, sylph-made cloud forms, rose-coloured for the most part, and brilliantly self-luminous. They brought with them an atmosphere of superabundant joy, as of a happy band of older children suddenly released from school, though in their case the opposite had occurred, as the angel had called them from the freedom of the upper air to serve as subjects for the human education. The summons consisted of a strong and highly concentrated stream of willpower, clothed in mental matter, a will thought, a mental shout, as it were. From the upper portion of the angel's aura, a number of small cone-shaped forms also flashed into the air point upwards. The main colouring was rose, though the points were tipped with a steel blue. Each one struck a sylph, attracted its attention, and conveyed an order in response to which it descended. The angel was so far above them in evolution that an expression of his thought and will amounted to a command. The angel smiled on them, and the rose-coloured rays of love shone from the sylphs toward the angels, each one drawing an immediate response from him, his aura becoming suffused with a rosy light. He extended it laterally into two wing-like radiations, and then stretched these forward until they enveloped and passed beyond the group of sylphs, who were thus played upon by the intensely vivid and luminous auric energies of the angel. With these auric wings he maintained a continual graceful sweeping and swinging movement backwards and forwards between himself and the sylphs, each beat of the wings pouring more life and love into them and filling them with an added joy until their state became one of rapture. Towards each other they displayed considerable mutual affection, many of them standing with arms outstretched to rest upon each other's shoulders. When these felicitations were completed, a concerted movement began in which all were linked in this way, the whole group arranging itself in circular tiers into the shape of a convolvulus flower. One sylph formed a point, 3 formed a circle above it, all facing inwards. Their remainder formed ring upon ring, each larger than the one below, the whole glowing and flashing with rosy light, within which the natural colours of their auras appeared like the changing hues of an opal. Then the whole flower began to turn, all the sylphs moving together and maintaining perfectly the convolvulus flower form. Their faces bore an expression of joy, and their long hair floated out behind them, their shining auric robes blending in an expression of their perfect unity of feeling and thought. They revolved with an increasing rapidity until the angel gave the signal of dismissal by raising his right hand above his head. Then the whole group, still revolving and maintaining the flower formation, rose high into the heavens, after which each ring opened into a line and broke up into groups of 2 or 3 sylphs. Still rotating and rising as it turned, the flower form created in superphysical matter by this aerial dance remained, shining in the heavens. Shortly afterwards, as if perceiving this and animated by a new idea, the sylphs reformed into one big circle round the flower, and by united thought built an enclosing translucent sphere of the soft green colour of the teaching angel's aura. This did not grow entirely into a closed sphere, but remained open at the top, streams of energy flowing up through the interior of the form to play out into the air above. A certain abandon now became apparent in the movement of the sylphs, who continued to wheel with extreme rapidity toward the flower form. Their heads were thrown back, and their bodies were curved outwards from the circle. At last they dispersed, glancing and sending towards the angel thoughts of love which descended upon him in a shower of crimson cones. They entered his aura, and within which they flowed for a time with rosy light. The flower form was evidently created as an offering, and the dance was an expression of love, unity, and joy, performed in honor of the angel who called them, to whom they paid the compliment of building the surrounding form in the predominating color of his aura. A smile lighted his face as he turned to me in a gesture of farewell, and then disappeared. I don't know, I think that the light is, maybe that's not too bad. There's one there. Drawn by an artist at Geoffrey Hodson's description. another one. An angel of music. The god of the Southern Pacific descending. So, more inspiration from a different angle, and extending our understanding of Devas. And when we next encounter one ourselves, we'll perhaps be influenced by those various projections of imagery, and come to a more intimate understanding of what is and might be going on between us humans and Devas. For example, I've often felt that the healing of the ozone layer, which was a great topic of concern, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, I've heard from various sources that the hole in the ozone layer has been narrowed. And it struck me at the time that was, our activity caused it, as far as I can gather. And certain chemicals in spray cans, I think. But it was the Devas' half of the bargain to heal it. And although many of us did this unconsciously, it was given to the Devas as something to solve, which I think they did. And I don't know how unselfishly or resentfully they may have done this, but it struck me at the time, and it still does, that that itself, the solving of that problem, or the partial solving of that problem, is part of the ongoing cooperation between Devas and humans. It exists on many other levels, of course. The upsurge in organic gardening, I suspect, is also part of that. One reads of the many young people attracted to organic gardening as workers, and that does seem to be ongoing in many parts of the world. And as people become more and more aware of the problems with nature, the more they wish to serve in the healing of those problems. So I do see progress on these fronts. Maybe slow, but it's happening. And all is not yet lost. Not at all. We are making progress as we come together. And until next time, friends, so long.